Hi, Christina. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm waiting for Brother Rob to join.
Okay.
I see he's coming on in here. Brother Rob, Christina, see you put on the glasses.
Yes, I need mine also.
Okay, good, good, good. Awesome. Hey, Brother Rob, are you on here? Okay, I see he's joining. We're gonna wait. So how you doing today, Christina?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Wonderful.
Hmm. See, let me try to invite. One more time. I'm just going to give him a few more minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, you better work.
great.
We got all three of us now. How about that? Well,
Great.
how about that? Now we can
Okay.
all see each other. How
Right?
about it?
Yeah, yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Christina. How you doing? Good to see you.
Well, you. Good seeing you.
Yeah, likewise. And I'm not part of the glasses crew, but
But
hey, look,
hey,
you
oh, you
know,
got the hat on.
I got my Michael hat on, so
Right.
got to do what I got to do.
Hmm.
Again, shout out JBO Hats for
Hmm.
you know creating this great hat that I wear every single time. It's almost become a signature for me, just
Okay.
like it was for Michael. So,
Yes.
of course, as we all know, we're all here to have a conversation about vitiligo and Michael Jackson. Of
Yes.
course, hey, the movie's coming out tomorrow, so
Yes.
I'm not going to start too soon. I'm going to wait for people to get in and get settled and whatnot. I'm going to see. I'm going to invite quite a few folks here
Hmm.
to join in here because it is very important that um, it's talked about.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Yes.
there's quite a bit of people that really need to know what's going on, and
Hmm.
um, out today, and this is going to be a phenomenal conversation that really can't wait to have. And even a
Hmm.
couple of minutes sounds long at this
Yes.
particular point, but either
Hmm.
way, we're
Hmm.
all here.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, um, one of my cousins actually has vitiligo,
I remember you
and
told me
he's had it
that.
for a few years. Yeah, so
Hmm. How's she
um,
doing?
he's doing good. He's
Okay. Oh,
learned to
he.
embrace it at this point.
Right, right,
hmm
right. Okay, well, praise the Lord.
So absolutely, and we're going to
So,
give it just a couple more moments here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, how old was he when he was diagnosed with vitiligo?
I would say he's older than me slightly. We call him Little Rodney, but I mean, we all in our 40s at this point. One of us grandkids, and I say the grandkids respectfully because of our late grandmother. Us grandkids, one's in their 50s, and I think Rod is in his late 40s, approaching 50 at this point. Because I'm 41. So
Okay.
I'm 41 and he's older than me. He's somewhere on that other side getting to the big 50 very soon.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
but I would like to say um, it was more so. I remember him talking about this about at least 10 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago. And he's learned to embrace it. He promoted a lot of gospel concerts around Philadelphia area, and he did a lot of marketing and promotion following in. well, at the radio station, we call him Unc. He's the voice of our radio station. But my uncle, Rick, he used to do marketing and promotion, and that's the footsteps he followed. So it was amazing. But one time, I'm prayerfully soon will have a conversation with him about
Okay.
how he
Yes.
embraced vitiligo, because I'm
Oh, yes.
sure it
Mm-hmm.
was something that he didn't even expect, and he probably was uncomfortable with it for quite a bit, and it's something new to him. For anybody experiencing anything new, it's always an adjustment level that
Oh,
tends
yeah.
to happen.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and
Definitely.
it could take months,
Mm-hmm.
or it could take several years, or you
Yeah.
just never get over it at all
Right.
because
Yeah.
you're used to a certain thing. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
used to a certain thing, either change is good or
Mm-hmm.
change will scare you.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what most people go through. And so
Mm-hmm.
with that, I think we've got people coming in right now. So y'all ready to get going?
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
have this
do it.
conversation.
Let's have it.
Absolutely. And for those
Yes.
who are just tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. This is a special conversation in lieu of the you're probably going to be your new favorite movie of this summer, Michael, that is coming out worldwide in theaters tomorrow.
Yes.
And really, we'll say at midnight, because we are live on the East Coast at midnight, wherever you are in the country or worldwide. Half the world has already got it right now. But
Mm-hmm.
this side of the world, the United States, midnight sweeping across the country. Some of you sneak previewed it already. Don't give it away. If you're in the comments, don't give it away. Please don't give it away. But listen, for those of you that are here, please put in the comments where you're at, where you're tuning in from today. We want to know how you're feeling, what made you join this particular live tonight. Yes, half of it is I invited you. Yeah, of course I did, because this conversation needs to be had. And if you've heard of vitiligo, or you know someone that deals with vitiligo or has it, please put it in the comments. Share your story. Please feel free to share that story with us. As I just did a few minutes ago, as you all were coming on, of course, if you missed it, I have a cousin that has an older cousin that has vitiligo as well. And it took him some time to get used to it. And now he continues to embrace it. So, and it's very, very much visible. And so with that, it does a lot for people. It does a lot, but you have to go through the stress and the understanding of it all. And so we're going to cover all of that today. Even in a short amount of time, we're going to talk about a lot. There's going to be a lot of gems and wisdom. There's going to be a lot of knowledge on this particular live. So definitely stay tapped in, share this with a friend, share this with a friend, share this with a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and so on and so forth, so that you can get the knowledge, and the next person you do come across with vitiligo or developing signs of vitiligo, be there for them, comfort them.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very stressful, it can be very tedious, and it can be scary for most, especially us, people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just strictly for melanated, right? It happens to everybody. But you see it most in us.
Yes.
And we need to talk about it. There are things you need to know, and there are things that we didn't know that you're going to find out today. So with that, for those that are here on here, when you hear the word vitiligo, put in the comments, what is the first thing that comes to your mind, right? Just when you hear the word vitiligo, what just happens? Does it trigger anything? What does it do to you? What does it mean to you? Feel free to put it in the comments as we continue to go on with this conversation. And yes, I personally know people living with vitiligo. One's right here on the screen, and I spoke of one off screen. But we also want to introduce you to someone on this side of the screen. I hope I'm pointing right. Right there, right there. She is her. She is Christina Maples, a retired school teacher who started getting lighter in her early 30s. And we're going to hear her story as well. Speaking of stories, it's not just a story, it's a movement, it's a book. But she's going to share that towards the end. We don't want to give too much away. Just like we don't want to give, if you've seen the Michael movie, don't give it away.
Yes.
Please
Don't give
don't
it
give nothing
away.
away.
No.
Because I didn't see it. Personally, I didn't see it. And I want to see it.
I
Don't
didn't
give
see
nothing
it
away.
either. Okay.
Right. So, she's not going to give away too many details about her book because it's important for you to read it. All right. And thank you, Monet Classical Art, tuning in from right here in the ATL. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And listen, let's get into the conversation.
Let's get into
So
it.
let's get into it. So let's start with Ms. McCarthy real quick. What
Okay.
is vitiligo? And I hear it's an autoimmune condition. What makes it autoimmune and what happens when it comes down to vitiligo?
Okay, so when I first heard about vitiligo, I didn't know about it. And that's when I found out I had it, right? So I started
Mm-hmm,
looking it up. But the first thing is autoimmune means that you cannot control it, right? When you first hear about it, that's what you're told. It's like you can't control it.
mm-hmm,
Secondly, it's white patches. It starts off with a tiny dot. It could be very tiny, like you take a pen or a Sharpie and you make that dot. It starts off very small and
mm-hmm,
then it continues to spread over time, depending on how your body is doing. And I believe it's stress related, trauma. In our community, we have so much stress and undue trauma, right? And we don't know that we're dealing with it. And I think that's what the primary cause is. That's something we need to address as a community, right? But for
mm-hmm,
most people, what they need to know is that it starts off as a small white dot and then it continues to spread. Sometimes it can spread rapidly, and sometimes it takes years, or just sometimes you just live with it. But, we
mm-hmm.
have Christina here who's going to tell you something that happened to her. And it's very amazing how our bodies adapt.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
we're here talking about Michael Jackson's movie coming out. And in my experience, vitiligo happened very quickly for me. Um, I started off with very tiny spots on my hand, and I was 33
Mm-hmm.
years old, and it was diagnosed as vitiligo. By the time I was 37, I had lost all pigment. The color you see on my skin is where I am all over. So I no longer have spots. I'm just one color, but this is not the color I was born with. The color I was born with is what you see on Natasha, Miss Pierre. Um, I had the same chocolate skin, and vitiligo took all of my pigment from head to toe within those short 3 to 4 years. A lot of people have questions about whether Michael Jackson just bleached his skin. He may have done some bleaching because I did also, because all my pigment had gone except for a couple of little spots on my leg, a couple of little spots on my arm, and a little strip right across my forehead. And so I did use bleaching cream for those spots. But you can imagine, this is my whole body from head to toe. It had completely lost pigment. The thing is, that was 30 years ago. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Winnie Harlow. I was looking at her age. She's only 31. There was no Winnie Harlow when when I got vitiligo. There was no knowledge, there was no awareness. And thankfully for her, she came along and she brought a lot of awareness to vitiligo. But there still is not an awareness of what's called what I have, which is universal vitiligo. And that's when you have lost 80 to 90% or more. of your pigment. And in my situation, I I went through a lot of the same things that most people with vitiligo go through, the mental challenges of dealing with it, being in the public because I was a teacher and being visible, having to explain. Uh, it was difficult at first, but as Natasha said, you learn as you go along, and learn how to deal with it. But there's an extra added thing in there with people of color. The reason why nobody believed Michael Jackson was because if you turn white and you're black, people think that you wanted to be white and that he did that to himself so that he could be white. And it's a stigma, actually. But there's happening, it's so rare that people have universal vitiligo, which vitiligo is rare to begin with, but it's very rare that people lose all pigment. And so, with there not being any examples out there was nothing for Michael Jackson to point to. You know, there were no panels of people that came out to say, this is vitiligo, and this is what vitiligo did with me. And I think that a lot of it is because of the way racism is in society. And people tend to think that if you look a certain way, you fall into a certain category. And I actually had another young lady that had universal vitiligo that I met at one of the functions that Natasha gave, actually. And she talked about her family and her family accusing her of bleaching her skin because you just don't see it. People are not used to seeing it, they don't know what it is. A lot of people that would see me would think that I was albino. Quick lesson, the difference between being albino and having universal vitiligo. I was not born with this color skin. People who are or have albinism were born without pigment, and they've never looked any other way. I think that was what was so difficult with me, was going from being chocolate like Natasha and now having lost all pigment. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite prepared for that. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
people started responding to me, and did you imagine? I'm 33 years old. I had degrees. I had bought a home. I had a son. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had lived a large part of life. And
Right.
then when I would see people that I hadn't seen in a long time prior to me having vitiligo, they wouldn't recognize me. They didn't know who I was because
Mm-hmm.
I was totally different. Um, the importance of that is too, I look at it from a medical perspective, although they wanted to label it as a cosmetic disease. But I think that's because some partially it's because of racism, because they don't see it as anything bad. Pretty much the feedback that I've gotten has been, oh, you look fine, you know, you look good. And never
Mm-hmm.
mind what the skin is the largest organ of the body.
Right.
This happened to the largest organ that I have, but nobody seemed to think it was anything other than a cosmetic thing. Something happens when you ask about autoimmune disease and it being autoimmune disease. The thought is that your immune system in autoimmune diseases, your immune system sees something in your body that they see as foreign, and it
Mm-hmm.
attacks that foreign. And so the pigment in the skin in vitiligo is what is uh, seen as a foreign object. And so your immune system attacks. and takes it away. So there's a very physical thing that's happening there. But for a long time, and not until recently, I would say probably in the last decade, we start getting more conversations around what's going on
Mhm.
internally. So
Could
it's
I?
definitely. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna ask a question because from what I've noticed, when it comes to vitiligo, right? It being autoimmune, of course, it's not contagious, right?
Right.
But the thing is that a lot of it tends to be stress induced, and we deal with a lot of stress. So when you were discovering that you had vitiligo, would you say that it was a lot of stress and trauma that we normally, and yes, I said it, and for those that don't believe that, do the research. We have went through so many things over 400 plus years, right?
Hmm.
And then in the 80s, you had the colorism thing. Remember school days, right? The dark skin versus the light skin, right? And they centered on that in school days. And that was what, 88, if I'm not mistaken, school days? Taken right on, shot right on the grounds of the AUC, right? And so they touched on that. They didn't touch on vitiligo, but the colorism at that time was a big deal going into the 90s. And then it just kind of tailed off. Then other things came into play and really took over. And then the conversation got lost in the sauce. So, do
Totally
you
agree.
think it's because we stress about a lot that vitiligo ramps up in us faster than maybe the average or someone of another race?
I definitely believe that. I was teaching. I was a single parent, and I know just those two things. I was under a lot of stress, a lot of stress, and I think I could believe that that would be part of the triggering. However, maybe I don't know. It was more to this extent with me because I spent 2 years in the army, and I was in Germany actually when I was pregnant with my son, and that was when Chernobyl happened. And I looked up a lot of research. I know people who are veterans now who have vitiligo, and so there's that chemical element there too. But I
Oh
really do
yeah.
believe I
Hmm.
had been out of the military for at least like 6, 7 years by the time I got vitiligo. But I really do believe that the stress compounded any exposure, and that's where the origins are. A lot of research has been done, but they're very small research
Mm-hmm.
uh, projects, and of course, because a lot of that's driven by money. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of it that's psychological too. Like I said, I had at times I would see a therapist, and one of the therapists I was seeing was a Caucasian woman. And when I started speaking to her, because I was going through a lot of changes with my body internally,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd been seeing a lot of doctors, but they didn't seem to be alarmed, you know. And she said that, oh, she said, if I were to go to the doctor and I would turn them black, I think they would think it was a problem. Just imagine that. If white people started turning black tomorrow, they'd have a cure.
Of course. Of course. I totally agree
Yeah,
And
with that. Hmm.
I've had so many
absolutely.
encounters with doctors who go, "Oh, you're fine. You look fine. Look." The word is look. And why do I look fine? Because I have the white skin, the privileged skin. And that's why they think I'm fine. And so it was really wearing on me mentally because I'm thinking, okay, I'm losing all of my pigment and nobody seems to think it's a problem. I think that if people with vitiligo were turning green, it would be a big red flag. But I think that the association that we have um, with color and white and privilege, that if you have the white skin, you shouldn't be complaining. And I've had so much as a doctors that were telling me, "Oh, you look fine," and that was mind-boggling to me. Still is. But like I said, I wasn't prepared for that whole racial component,
Mm,
and and still to this day, I'm sure on this camera you can't really see the white skin, the whiteness of my skin.
yeah, I can't. You're right.
Yeah, when I'm out in public, you know, there just been so many instances, and it happens every day. What I find
Mm,
interesting is that when I talk about that aspect of it, it's hard for people to wrap their mind around it, as we do with a lot of issues concerning race.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
can't people can't
Yeah.
imagine what that's like. I have my friends
mm,
and people who knew me before. Sometimes we'll joke about it, and we'll talk about before I was white, or back in the day when I was black.
Mm.
I'm still black. My skin may be black, but I'm still black. And when they get to, for people who don't know me, when they get to know me, they're, oh yeah, she's black. But there's always that time when I first meet people and they're trying to figure out who I am. And I guess what it
mm,
was, I was not prepared to have to prove who I am. I was just being who I was. There's certain things I cannot say in a crowd or in a group of black people because they may not get it. It's me as
mm.
an outsider.
And it's so interesting. You mentioned outsider, and this is a lot of what we were, and most of us still are. Because if you don't know, you just don't know. To Michael Jackson, and look, everybody had so many things to say after 1984, the Pepsi commercial accident. Now, the first question before I dive into this part of the conversation, of course, for those just tuning in, Michael movie it comes out tomorrow. Well, later tonight, if you're one of those late night movie heads, because there are going to be some screens out there that have a midnight showing of Michael at midnight, and y'all going to sell that place out. I already know that. So it's coming out tomorrow. We're going to deep dive into the Michael Jackson conversation at this point because 1984 Pepsi commercial accident. Nobody knew he had vitiligo until he might have known, but it wasn't any of our business
Right.
until
Mhm.
Pepsi comes along. Now I was not here yet in 1984, and that was a year that was a turning point for Michael Jackson, which he was already going through the stress of being an entertainer since a child, right?
Stress.
And
Stress.
he looked up to so many entertainers,
Mm-hmm.
Off the Wall album, 83. Cool. Then we transition. Then he comes, then it's Thriller. Then, wait a minute. Hold on. Something's changing about Michael. What is going on with Michael? Why is he wearing all these masks and all this other stuff? So I call the fact here, and which is what I mentioned earlier. Now, the direct accident did not cause the vitiligo. However, as I mentioned earlier, stress. He had to go back and reinvent himself and cover himself up because he didn't know how to handle it and deal with it.
Right.
All the stress induced The physical trauma that was from the injury sustained,
And
it
shame.
accelerated.
And shame. Because you
And
know what?
Yeah, shame. That's right.
Shame.
Shame.
Hmm.
Because just like his mentor and his long time mentor James Brown said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." He believed that in his heart, but you still have shame because you're losing that melanated pigment of your
Hmm.
skin.
Hmm.
And that accident only further pushed it to the limits beyond the scope to where the 90s Michael wasn't the same Michael that we seen further on back. And
right,
so a lot of rumors came out in the 90s. Oh, he bleached his skin. He bleached his skin. He bleached his skin. Well, no, he may not have done it all the way. He was trying to figure out how to deal with it. I mean, he had the best of the best professionals around him,
Right.
right?
And typically, dermatologists, they usually suggest when you get about 60% white,
Mm-hmm.
that they recommend using the monobenazole, which is the bleaching cream. And that
Mm.
monobenazole comes
Okay.
from rubber, right? Rubber on our tires, rubber in our gloves.
Mm. On
Okay, that
shoes and everything. Yeah.
yes, that has a bleaching element, right? So they usually
Wow.
recommend monobenazole to take that pigment out of your skin. So, and that's why I
Mm.
wanted to just touch on this because, stress, and we also have environmental stress, right?
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
these
That's what we
processed
do.
foods and the processed foods that we eat, all
Mm-hmm.
those things can trigger vitiligo. So you don't necessarily have to have it genetically, but we predispose because of the environment. We have all these chemicals, forever
Mm.
chemicals, plastics,
Right.
babies'
Mm-hmm.
pampers, all these different things can trigger it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why, we are continually sounding the alarm because it's just like, hey, especially we live in Georgia, right? And if you
Yeah. Yeah.
live on the south side, you know what's going on the south side. We're trying to fix that. We have the
Yeah.
pollution, we have food deserts, lack of health
Mm-hmm.
care. Thank God they're building a new hospital on this side of town. But, for
Yeah.
us, we need to work on doing better. And I think we are, but, definitely we need to be a little bit more aware, about these
Mm-hmm.
forever chemicals and the foods that we're eating, you know?
And I want to add something too because right now in southern Georgia, there are wildfires going on, and the healthy foods that we may get that are locally and statewide grown, if they're having a wildfire in that area, it affects not just the prices of those particular items that you may be eating healthy to kind of dial back a lot of the effects, but now you can't get them. There, a lot of it's going to be delayed because once the fire's over, now you got to figure out how to replant them. That could take months to do while the prices continue to go up. So those lifestyle changes can happen like that, and it could definitely ramp up the and accelerate the spread of vitiligo throughout your body. By the time you get that healthy food back that you were eating to keep it at bay and dial it back while you're treating it however you are treating it, now you have to be stressed out about that food going up, and you no longer have enough money. Stress, 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 which also relates to the food desert. Everything ties in,
Yep,
which
yep,
is
yep.
why we see a lot of, when it comes to agriculture, we see a lot of locally grown farms that are here in parts of Atlanta that you have no idea they're there. They're in the middle of your neighborhood, like Brown's Mill Farm. Shout out to Miss Celeste, who who runs that farm over there. She grows a lot of these things to keep us well, and it's in the middle of a predominantly black neighborhood. In the middle of a predominantly black neighborhood, southeast Atlanta. And so, those are just examples. There's a small farm on Campbellton Road that does the same thing. in predominantly black neighborhoods where we know there's a food desert. We know we need these healthy items. We have been we have been kept away from the information and the healthy foods that we need, where you got to go miles and miles out on MARTA because we're not driving, right? Especially back in the day, you know, your local grocery store carried all the processed stuff and it was cheap. But you had to go to Buckhead and probably North Fulton County if you could get there back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
In northern DeKalb or maybe DeKalb Farmers Market to even get a taste of something healthy that's not processed. So we've had a lot of stress for a while, and it still continues in our neighborhoods to this day. And we there's a lot of ways that we can relieve our stress, but there's always something,
Right.
right? There's always something.
Mm-hmm.
And once we can get out of that mindset that it's always something, then I think we would be far better off. Does it stop vitiligo? No,
No.
because some of it can be genetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
be. But most of it accelerates with the stress induced. And when we talk about Michael, we're talking about it could have been 60% or more by the time he finally figures out how to maneuver. He wore masks all the time. He had to wear disguises a lot.
His glove.
Now, here's where that question comes into play. Was that part of the shame?
Probably.
Yes.
You know, he was changing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame from the fame.
Yeah.
When he
And
started
actually,
wearing,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When he started wearing the glove, it immediately said vitiligo to me because most people it starts on your hands.
That's right.
And he just all of
Thank
a
you
sudden,
for bringing that up.
and I thought, oh, when I saw him wear the glove, I immediately thought, oh yeah, he's covering up those spots on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
it started,
Right. Because
I
most of it starts in the hand, right?
yeah,
It
and I
starts
know
there. Mm-hmm.
because I experienced it, I would cover up my vitiligo when I had spots with makeup. And the hands were the
Mm,
hardest things to do because what? We use our hands all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's not
right.
going to wash it, he's going to wash it off or whatever. So he just probably decided, oh, I'm just going to wear this sparkly glove, to cover it up because he can do it and not
He
have to.
started. Didn't he start wearing that glove about 83 or the
Yeah,
Off the Wall album?
yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
probably
that's
In
when
the
he
had it
started,
80s.
right?
for a
Mm-hmm.
long
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could have it for a long time and it not show. It would be in places where you could cover it up. So there's no telling how long he may have had vitiligo.
It's interesting because it's just tough to see because when I looked at there's a lot of 70s footage from the Jackson Five, right? And the Jacksons, you know, the This Place Hotel, and the last part of the Jacksons before they went on the Victory tour, right? Before they went on a Victory tour, you always saw Michael's hands in everything. You saw Michael's hands in everything, and then the glove. Then you started seeing that in Rock With You video, and it might have been before that, but you started seeing it in Rock. You started seeing it in Rock With You video, and then as you went into the '90s, remember the time he had gloves on,
Hmm.
black gloves to match the costume, to match the costume. He had in bed. He had the biker gloves on with the spikes, right?
Hmm.
He showed his hands, but he always had a glove on. Every video he had a glove on. Even Moonwalker he had a glove on. Or in the parts with the whole movie, he didn't. The whole movie Moonwalker, and that was one of my favorites personally.
Yeah, I can't say whether he had vitiligo or not. I would think that he did because we went through very similar things. the progression of my vitiligo was I would get the spots, and then the skin that was left around it that had pigment would start to get lighter. It
Hmm.
did just automatically, turn to a spot. It would get lighter. And I noticed with Michael that, he started getting lighter, because it would start to blend after a while with certain areas and certain spots. And it's just the transformation, it was just so similar um, with Michael Jackson. But again, all of this is connected to race also.
Hmm.
The thing that they were worried about was that he was turning white. That's the
Yeah.
thing. If he were turning green, it would be like, oh, poor Michael Jackson. You know, he's got that disease that's turning him green. But because he was turning white and then lost all his pigment, it had to be, he wanted to be white. It's the stigma
A
of
lot of
white.
people made some jokes about that back in the day too, that were not very tasteful around that time, and that added to the shame because he watched TV, believe it or not. But he did. He watched some TV, and he was the brunt of many jokes throughout
It
the
is.
'90s alone.
Yes. I have been in the room personally with people that I know. When I tell people I have vitiligo, they don't see any spots anywhere, so they don't truly understand. And they're afraid to ask
Correct.
questions, I guess. And I'll try to tell them. But I tell a story in my book about when I was at a Super Bowl party. And that's right after Michael Jackson had died, and they were doing tributes to him on TV. Now, mind you, all of these people in the room knew me and knew me to say I have vitiligo, but it didn't really click with them what I was saying.
Hmm.
And they were sitting there having a discussion about whether Michael Jackson had vitiligo and whether vitiligo was even real.
Mm.
I'm right here. It happened to me. It is real.
Hmm.
I can't say for sure whether he had it, but I mean, it's still, and I was just thinking about what I wanted to talk about because I'm still in a lot of rooms where people are making jokes about Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
Michael Jackson.
And they're
I am.
distasteful too, by the way. Yeah, very.
Hmm. It's very prevalent uh, still to this day.
Absolutely. And speaking of questions, I want to get to that question below. I think we may have answered a little bit of it from Monet Classical Art, saying if Michael Jackson were alive today, do you think he would cover up his vitiligo? Let me go first and answer that question because I think he would have been more of a powerful advocate regarding vitiligo today and helping raise awareness. After his This Is It tour in retirement, he probably would have been a major spokesperson for vitiligo. He didn't have a chance to do that. And you start to wonder, did he have a chance to embrace it in those final years, in those final moments? And so, you know, as much as he covered up in public, he still found, I think he would have found a way to embrace it, at least by now, because we're talking about unfortunately, and I say so unfortunate because we lost a great one there years ago. But I think by now, just going through life and um, progressing through it and not having to deal with as much as he used to because he wouldn't have been performing as much anymore. He would have been more so consulting and enjoying his retirement more so. Finally, he gets to enjoy his life. I think he would have been more so probably the greatest advocate for vitiligo awareness, probably on the entire planet. And everybody would stand behind him 150%. He would have learned to embrace it by now. It probably would have been 5, 10 years ago because the awareness of COVID was much worse than that. And so, with that said, I think he would have learned to embrace it. He would have been around more people that dealt with the same thing that he dealt with. Of course, behind the scenes, not everything has to be televised or publicized, right? But I'm sure he would have had conversations with people who dealt with it, and he would have learned some stuff because there's a lot of things that he didn't know. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure even with the best of the best people, dermatologists and everything around him, they probably only told him what he wanted to hear. That's
Agree.
it. They didn't give him facts. They didn't give him anything else. They were yes people. What, who can say no to Michael Jackson, right?
Right.
If
That.
you're an
Mm-hmm.
entertainer, a fan,
Mm-hmm.
or whoever, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to automatically be a yes person for the absolute king of pop, no question, hands down, right?
Right.
You're
Yes.
automatically going to turn into a yes person. Even
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Murphy, you saw
Mm-hmm.
it in an award, one of the awards show back in maybe around 1990, 1991,
Mm-hmm.
the American Music Awards. Eddie Murphy, he was like, "Oh, I'm a justice for Michael." Hey, wait, Right. He acted like I worked for him. He said, Eddie, can you adjust this mic for me? And I just went ahead and do it. You Michael Jackson. Everybody, doesn't matter, you the greatest entertainer in the world. You're automatically a yes man for Michael Jackson. If he says no to you, you might cry. That's basically how much power and fame he had in the entire world. So by now, I think he would have been the greatest advocate for vitiligo. He would have embraced it and he would have shared it with the world because he was outspoken on a lot of issues and he found a platform to do it on. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what I think.
yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
McCarthy, what do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I'm also thinking that he heard the same message that we all hear when we're diagnosed with vitiligo. The first thing the doctor says is that there's no cure. Okay? So that's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing when you get diagnosed, that there's no cure, but I could give you some steroids, a cream, and we could test it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that also leads me to think about research dollars. Where's the money for
Mm-hmm.
our community for us to
That's
find a
true.
cure? You know, a lot of
Yeah.
us are hurting, not just with vitiligo, but also cancer. You know, there's a thing in the melanoma community. When people develop melanoma and they get cured of it, guess what? They develop vitiligo. Okay. And
Absolutely.
that's a good sign, right? So
Mm-hmm. Right.
it's very interesting, you know. So in our community, we need that research money to find a cure. You know, that's if we want it now, because now we have options, and I'm happy we have options. Back in the day, we didn't have options. It was like, okay, let me hide this, let me cover up because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna get that job, or I'm not gonna be accepted. So now we have more options. People are speaking up. People want their freedom. You know, Bob Marley, he talked about free your mind from mental slavery. You know, this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to be open. We want to be ourselves. This is who we are. You understand? And one thing Michael had was expression. He was in the arts
Mm-hmm.
community. You know, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's important for mental health.
Yeah.
You know, so he had that going for him, you know, and then he was famous and he was, you know, he already was made then, you know, but what about the regular Joe, right?
Right.
How do they
Mm-hmm.
deal with it, you know? So that's the thing, you know, it's like different layers to this conversation, and we could be on and on, talk about this on and on, but I just think
You
for,
already know it.
right, but I
You
just
know,
think for our people, we need that money. Go ahead, Christina.
I was doing some research to see actually when vitiligo began, because from my understanding, it was like way back in ancient
Biblical,
times,
biblical.
and it's been
Mm-hmm,
around, yes,
mm-hmm,
before Christ.
mm-hmm.
It's been around forever. And you ask
Mm-hmm.
yourself, where are we now? We have not made any progress. Why is that? I mean, I understand
Mm-hmm.
it's considered a rare disease,
Yeah,
and it's
a
not
few, a
addressed.
few people in the Bible turned white. Even Moses, when he went up and he spoke to God, he turned white, but he covered his face in shame
Mhm.
because he didn't want the people to see the
They
white on his
used to do it.
face.
They used to think it was leprosy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you ask yourself, with all of the time that vitiligo has been around, it's just been in Winnie Harlow's lifetime, the little young 31-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
that there's really been any push or progress in trying to do anything about it. Um, and then I know we all know that everything runs on money.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
they,
That's right.
they kind of just figured, we'll throw some products out there and, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's about all that we're going to do.
Yeah.
There needs to be more of
Hmm.
a, I guess, an understanding of this as a medical condition, because that's what blew my mind. It had me in therapy because I'm just like, how could you look at, I've lost all of my pigment and I'm supposed to, oh, just be happy because you look cute, you look good. That's all you got to worry about is what you look like. Not going to put all my business out there, but I have a disability. And I have a number of autoimmune diseases that I have developed since I've had vitiligo. I had doctors who have said to me, yes, I've had patients with vitiligo, but not to your extent. So they don't know what could be causing one. It's a medical condition. And I just wonder how many people are suffering from certain things because it's not treated as such. It's just treated as, let me make you look good.
Yeah. And, the other thing I want to bring into is, there are also animals that develop vitiligo, dogs,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
giraffes, horses, snakes, you name
Mm-hmm.
it. They get it as well. So, we have to also look at that. But, my thing is the environment, you know, uh, and is this God's plan for us, right? To develop this? Or is it He designed us in such a way that He wants us to know if you see this on your skin, you are stressed. They talk about high blood pressure is a silent killer. Well, maybe he created us like this to indicate to us, like maybe, I'm trying to get you to hear me. Your skin is thin, right? Maybe you're a little bit under stress. He created us with that
Hmm.
mechanism,
Hmm.
to see that, because we go around, we go through life, and nobody has a book, right? A handbook about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how you do life. You kind of like figure it out, right?
Hmm.
As you go along, even being a parent, right? You can listen to your
Mm-hmm.
elders or what have you. Now, I don't think kids listen to the elders as much, but, I think when we do these discussions, we bring awareness, and that's important, right?
Yes.
And,
Mm-hmm.
for the next generation, so they don't have to struggle as much. And that's one of the reasons I started this organization is for the awareness, right? So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
lighthouse that you're not struggling by yourself. You have other people who have the condition, and we're here for you. You can reach out to somebody and talk to somebody, you know. But
Yeah,
this wasn't how
Mm-hmm.
it was back in the
when I
days for
first
Christina.
when I first came to your organization, that was the first time I had ever seen anybody else with vitiligo.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Station, just that one time, I felt so close to you,
Hmm.
immediately.
Hmm. Hmm. And
As
I'm out here
it's like there was
all over the
that
street like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And she always has that smile going. She is happy everywhere she goes, and you can say what you want to, but she don't care. She ain't listening to you. What
I
she's
got
concerned about
Jesus.
is getting it
Okay.
exactly. She's raising awareness, and I'm gonna address the question from Monet
Hmm.
Classical
Hmm.
Art. Thank you so much for your questions this evening. Follow up question to the last one that they put up says, why do you think there is not a lot of research or research funding since vitiligo has been around for so long? Well, people say, for me, it's people say what they want about it. They have their facts, quote unquote, and they kind of stick with them. And you start to wonder that in a world where, let's keep it real, big pharma runs the country, and nobody's trying to find a cure. Nobody wants to do the research, and let's be 1500, as a lot of the kids would say. Let's be 1500. Most of it is
A hundred
us.
million dollars to
Hundred
do
hundred
research.
million dollars.
To
I'm
do
good with
research.
$100 million.
Who's gonna donate? Okay, right?
Correct.
How are we gonna do that?
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
Right.
Well, I
Mm-hmm.
believe I
Not enough
believe
people are raising awareness to be, in my eyes, for
And and
for it to
and
even go. Everybody's so busy making jokes and doing all of this and talking
right.
about it and
Mm-hmm.
not knowing
At least,
what it really
yes.
is.
At
Yeah,
least find. Let's
a lot
find
of
out
confusion.
yeah. At least find out where it's coming from. You know what I'm saying? We don't.
Right.
We don't need a cure, but there's something wrong, right? But I know it's something with nutrition. That's part of it, and it's a switch.
Yeah.
I know it's cortisol. That's one of the things, right? And that's
Hmm.
something that they need to look at. Hey, when your body is keep running like your adrenaline glands, you got fight or flight syndrome, right? If that
Right.
switch doesn't come off and you keep going, you're going to burn, right? So I think there's
Right.
something to that. And that's where the research dollars needs to go. So I'm challenging the scientists and the pharmaceuticals who's on here or listening. Hey, let's do something
Or
about
we'll
it.
listen to it
Let's
later.
let's do something about it. Let's just don't focus on the treatment. Let's
Yeah.
focus on the cure, right? It's going to help
Exactly.
other things. So that's
that's
all I
where
think.
Bob, when you were talking about
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
pharmaceutical and big pharma, that basically is what it is. They know the money is not in curing vitiligo. The money is in selling us vitiligo products,
Right.
and that's what it has been. There has not been one drug that's is going to help you not get vitiligo or cure your
Right.
vitiligo. It's how can we cosmetically cover your vitiligo?
Mm.
That's where all the money has
Right.
gone.
So we're real quick, because we only got a little bit of time here.
Oh wow!
So yeah, I know time flies, doesn't it? It's just
We should have
like
made
one
this a
hour,
2-hour
60 minutes just
conversation.
go by. Right, it goes by, and maybe we will have a part two coming soon.
Uh-huh.
But I want to get to the book. Christina, tell us about the book, and everything about it. Don't give us too much, because we want people to go out and get the book. We want to buy it online. However you do it, get it so that you know the full story. But tell us a little bit about it.
I wanted to, well, my purpose in I was trying to bring more awareness to what I have universal vitiligo. Um, and the way that I came about writing the book is I just started telling stories, and the stories are of what people have said to me um, about my vitiligo, and I try to do it without giving any commentary about what they mean by what they're saying. So it's basically a compilation of stories of experiences I've had of people talking to me about my vitiligo or my appearance. So the book is Vitiligo, Black to White, My Personal Journey, and it's on Amazon. If you Google my name, Christina Maples and Vitiligo, my YouTube channel will come up, the book will come up, some activities that I've done with Natasha will come up. And so you'll have everything right there. But it's on Amazon. You could just Google me on Amazon to get the book if you're interested. And like I said, it's not a traditional book. It's basically a book of story. And hopefully it'll give you some insight of what life is like for someone with universal vitiligo, and maybe
Absolutely.
some similarities with Michael Jackson. um, and look at it from that perspective. The biggest thing that I think about though is with Michael Jackson having universal vitiligo. People are inclined not to believe him because they don't know anybody else. Well, hey, here's somebody else. I have it, and I have the universal vitiligo. No, I didn't bleach myself from head to toe. I had vitiligo, and there are others like me that are out there. And I reached out to Natasha because that's even in the vitiligo community. I've had people with vitiligo say, "Do you have vitiligo?" Because they're not used to seeing it to this extent. So even people who have vitiligo have questions and thoughts. And actually, I'm going to talk to you about this, Natasha, because one of her events that she did with Macy's, um, there are kids there, teenagers, and it's hard to know how to discuss things with younger people. You don't want to say the wrong thing. And I had a young lady, teenager, who was getting her makeup done, and she had vitiligo, but you know, she just had spots. And her mother came to me and said she wants to be all one color like you. And I felt pressured because I didn't know exactly what to say. So I guess, that's a conversation I think we need to have in the community also
Yeah.
is, how do you deal with, I had an adult call me because I don't know how they got my number, that wanted to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes the parents are stressed. They don't know
yeah.
how to talk to their
Hmm.
kids. And sometimes
And
they need
Right.
us as mentors to talk to them. So I've done a
Yeah.
lot of that behind the scenes. Mm-hmm.
right. And so I
Mm-hmm.
tried to be, thoughtful in discussing it, but it did need to be a discussion in the community where we can talk about all the different things. And Natasha is just one person.
Right. Hello.
We can't put
Right.
everything on her.
No, exactly. That's why we have to rely on
Absolutely.
God for our strength and our leadership. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
And
if you
I,
could
I
repeat real,
mm-hmm.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I just
I
want to say
just
thank you
want
to
to,
Brother Rod.
my major
Mm-hmm.
thing is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want us to understand the many faces of vitiligo because
Mm,
it needs to be all of us together. When I say I had, and I'm say this, and I'm going to let you all take it over, but I had a doctor I was seeing for 10 years, general practitioner, and we would talk about me having vitiligo, but I always noticed he was kind of standoffish about it, and till I realized that somebody else, another doctor, said, "Oh, yeah, I see you have a few spots." And what they were looking at, what they were thinking that I had some spots that were lighter than what I am now, and that I used to always be this color. So I started taking a picture with to doctor's appointments. It showed me before and after, and they were flabbergasted. And I'm like, "Well, this one doctor, I've been seeing you for 10 years," and he had no idea what I was talking about when I said I lost all my pigment. He was still looking for some spots. Like I'm just a real light person, and I had some lighter spots somewhere. How that could possibly be, I don't know. But yeah, it's and getting the medical field, general practitioners, to have a basic knowledge of what goes on with vitiligo, who to refer you to. I've been here all night trying to tell you the process that I went through to get referred to doctors who could help me. Um, because there is no one. Nobody will tell you just go see. The only thing they'll tell you to see is a dermatologist. But there are internal things that you need to take care of. And there's no one type of doctor. General practitioners don't do it. Somebody said, well, maybe infectious disease, or maybe go to this specialist or that specialist. There's nothing designated in the medical field of any type of physician that is the go-to for vitiligo, other than a dermatologist, which is cosmetic.
Absolutely. Well, we got.
I know we could be here
I
all
really
night.
hope. I really hope that we have really touched on a lot of great things here in this particular conversation. But real quick, um, first of all, thank you, Christina. Really appreciate you being on. Just share with us one more time how we can go ahead and get your book.
Look for my book on Amazon. You can Google my name on Amazon, or you can Google the title "Vitiligo from Black to White," and
Absolutely.
it's a simple Google.
Hmm.
And remember the name, Christina Maples. You can pull up my name in vitiligo. And like I said, all of the things connected with me will come up.
Absolutely. And if they continue to have a conversation with you, messages or what have you, where are you on social media in case they want to,
Well,
have another discussion with you, even privately, because some may watch and not interact because they might want to have a private conversation with you and, really pour it out. How can they do that?
you can DM me on Instagram, Maples C 2015. That's Instagram, Maple C 2015. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Anyone wants to reach out, anyone wants to talk about anything, you can DM me. I will attempt to respond to anyone that has a question. And thank you for inviting us to do this and to getting information out there and spreading awareness. Is really a big thing.
Absolutely,
Thank you,
absolutely, and we
Brother
thank you
Rob.
for coming on. We're going
Hmm.
to have another. We're going to
Hmm.
have another conversation coming soon, and
Yes.
you'll see us very soon. But before I do that, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't ask you, Miss McCarthy, herself. If I didn't ask you, how can we find, follow, connect with you, and donate?
Hey, we here on at Vitiligo Bond on Instagram and on Facebook. You just put Vitiligo Bond in Google and you'll find us. And you could donate on the website, on IG, Facebook. We have a 5K coming up. We have all these things for the community. Okay. Expression. Just be out with everybody. Have fun. Live your life. Amen. That's what it is. We people too. Amen. And we want to have fun
Absolutely,
and live out loud too, right?
We always have fun.
Yes. Amen. Amen. The joy of the
absolutely.
Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Amen. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for this conversation. Really, really appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with that, of course, I'm the Morning Machine. You can find me pretty much all over. And I'm also a DJ now, Organic NRG, by the way. So I have two different aliases.
Yeah.
So I'm not just Brother Rob. I DJ too. All right. So yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta find me. I'm everywhere, all
Listen, you're
pretty
gonna
much
be
social media.
DJing our next event, okay? Okay, hopefully coming
That'll
soon
work.
some
Yep.
Macy's. Hey,
Can't wait. Can't
hey,
wait.
all
See,
right.
see, that's why. See, that's why it's important. And when you're a DJ, when you're on this journey,
Hey,
you
oh
get
look,
booked,
oh
and that's how you
Stone.
do
Hey Stone, how
it.
you doing? You not joining Stone? Come on, that's Stone. Everybody say hi to Stone.
Nice,
The,
Stone. How you doing?
yeah, Stone is the
But
manager at Porsche. Hey, hey.
yay, that's what I'm talking about.
Call
It's
me
and see,
Stone.
yeah, you better call her. You better call her. She's gonna hold you accountable if you don't. So, with that said,
Mhm.
remember, Michael, midnight. Most of you gonna go see it at midnight. There's a comment right there. All
Uh-huh.
right, hello
Uh-huh.
there. All right,
Mhm. Hey,
see, there you
Stone,
go. You got
Stone,
your answer.
Stone,
Oh,
Stone. Listen, Brother Rob is a DJ. So when you're having the Porsche
yeah,
events, call Stone. call Brother Rob. Brother Rob just he's a DJ as well. Okay, so I know you do a lot of Porsche events. That's your man
Yeah.
right there. Okay, Stone.
Follow my page, The Morning Machine Stone, and we'll talk. In the meantime, as for our talk, we conclude this evening. But remember, Michael, in theaters at midnight if you are the late movie head. But if you can wait till tomorrow, you're going to wait till tomorrow. And people are going to be getting tickets all weekend to see Michael. And from what I heard, this is only part one of this movie. Let's see
Oh
how
yes,
successful
part
it
two.
is. And then we continue to further the conversation with a part two coming somewhere down the line. But by that time, everybody will have an understanding, a correct understanding of what vitiligo is and what needs to be done, and the research will be there. Those dollars can finally start to roll because now the story is out there to a worldwide audience that does not know. So, with that said, ladies, thank you so much. I really appreciate you
Thank you,
all.
Brother Rob.
And the pleasure is all mine. I really appreciate you all and look forward to the next conversation. To all out there, if you still want to comment below, please feel free. If you watch this after, comment below. Let's have a conversation about it. You know, the conversation continues. You know, we're always available. And if you have questions for us, feel free to put them down in the chat comment box below. All right. So it'll be up here for your viewing pleasure and your informational pleasure. So please, please, please raise awareness. Do your research. Do vast research. Gain some vast knowledge, and let's really fight this thing. All right. So with that, I say good night.
Good night.
From the East Coast in the ATL,
Yes,
wherever
the
you watching us
ATL.
from, shouty. And with that said, yeah, that's right. I didn't think about up north guys saying shouty. All right, anyway, with that said, I want y'all to have a wonderful evening and take care. Remember, if you have questions or comments, feel free to continue that conversation below once this is posted. So with that said, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Take
Bye,
care.
Christina. Bye.